We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our ever-growing channel. Smash that like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. Breaking news. Big Ten. Okay, it's not quite the schedule release, but it's the matchups. The matchups have been released for 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028. We're going to be focusing on the 2024 schedule. Holy smokes. Do not be afraid to be a legend, a PATC legend in your comments and your phone calls later in the show. We got it. Breaking news. We were all set up for it. We got tipped off. We set up our studio. We're ready to go. Here we go. Breaking news. First of all, hold on, everybody. I want to thank everybody for coming on in early today. Skull Ducky, Buckshot Kid, Curtis Brown, David Hackett, Ted Evans, John Till, Hagen, Amac, Kirk Bender, the Evil Badger, Jeff Olson, Big Ten Ted. Get fired up, folks. Stephen McNeely, Mr. Buckeye, Jared Jones. Let's get to it right now. Let's not waste any more time. Now, look. First thing I notice is Washington Huskies schedule, USC schedule, UCLA schedule, Oregon Ducks schedule. Look at that. So, again, exciting times for the Washington Huskies, the Oregon Ducks. This is the very first time they see their names listed in the Big Ten football schedule. It's getting exciting. I think those fan bases, I think they're in for just a world of fun. Really. This is going to be a little bit different for them. And for us as well in the Midwest and out east. But this is something else. You know, throughout the year, I've been saying within 5 months or 5 years from now, Oregon and Washington, we're going to become Big Ten members. They just were. There was interest. We went through that whole story. I got all the slings and the arrows. I've got holes in my back as proof of all those slings and arrows. Well, here you go. This is the evidence. This is the proof. You don't need any more proof than this 2024 football schedule. And guess what we're going to do here at Peek Around the Corner? We're going to celebrate it. We're going to pour it in to our Cloak and Dagger mug that you can get at the merchandise store. Remember, you can get at the merchandise store, Cloak and Dagger mug. Go to the link provided in the description below the video. We're first going to go to Oregon. Let's go to their schedule for 2024. I know it's difficult to read on your phone or your tablet. As we go in more into the show, we'll go into our X account here, formerly Twitter account. We'll go through all the more schedules and a better way for you all to see it. But Oregon, their away games for 2024, their away games, the Oregon Ducks, first year in the Big Ten Conference. They go to Michigan, they go to Purdue, and they go to UCLA, they go to Wisconsin. They're at home against Illinois, Maryland, the Spartans, the Buckeyes, and the Washington Huskies. Holy smokes. So, Michigan, Wolverines, and the Buckeyes. And your first year schedule for Oregon Ducks. Look, you know who's loving all this besides us fans? It's the networks. It's NBC. It's CBS. It's the Big Ten networks. It's Fox, of course. Holy smokes. Let's take a look at Washington's away schedule. Indiana, at Iowa, at Oregon. They go to Oregon. Now, I'm assuming that's listed somewhere as a permanent rival. Put it down in the chat if you have seen that official. Washington and Oregon, I expect that is a permanent rival, right? Washington also goes on the road to Penn State, Rutgers. So Washington has to go far east to Penn State and Rutgers in their first year. And Washington's home conference schedule is home against the Michigan Wolverines. Wolverines are going into Washington. Northwestern is taking a trip to Washington. UCLA, Washington, USC to Washington. That's Washington's conference schedule. Iowa, Oregon, Penn State, Rutgers, Indiana, Michigan, Northwestern, UCLA, and USC. Let's take a look at USC's schedule. Away games: Maryland, Michigan, Minnesota, UCLA, Washington. USC is on the road to Maryland, Michigan, Minnesota, UCLA, Washington. I'm seeing a lot of Michigans here. We're going to have to go to Michigan's schedule after we go through the first four. But USC is going to Minnesota. Please. Oh, please. 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 Please, I beg you. I beg you. I beg you, Tony Petitti. I beg you, Fox Sports. What do I have to do? I beg you. Put USC at Minnesota in November. Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. This is why you're doing it. Put the Trojans on the road to Minnesota in November. In November, let the California boys Come in here. Come in here. Come in here. Minnesota, do it. Ivan 57, do it. I don't care if USC is favored by 4 touchdowns. You think that doesn't happen in Minnesota regularly? Of course it does. It don't matter. Bring them in here in November. Late October, fine, but bring them in here in November. Our late November game will be against Wisconsin. Second week in November, first week in November. Do it. Do it. Ted Evans, Greg is jacked. Of course I'm jacked. If you don't love this, look, again, this is a national college football YouTube channel. I think we have proven that, okay? Breaking the Colorado stuff. We've proven that over and over again. But, look, I'm biased. My Big Ten juices are flowing. If the Big Ten Midwest schools, if the fans can't get jacked to go out and go to the beautiful football stadium that Washington has, the purple lights, Oregon, Los Angeles, the Rose Bowl, Pasadena, and at times they're going to get jacked for coming into places that they've never been before, to a football country that is jacked for college football. This is an exciting time, an unbelievable time, and of course, as a Gopher fan, we'll get back to the schedule. I apologize. First of all, Big Ten, Ted, Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA are protected. That's on the West Coast. So I'm guessing that USC and Washington is not a protected game. Is that true? Is it just Oregon, Washington, UCLA versus USC? Those are the protected? Give me a confirmation. By the way, I will be on the Big Ten Ted Show tonight, 8 o'clock. Big Ten Ted. We're going to be talking about Big Ten football, the schedules that just come out, plus what's going on here this year. Big Ten Ted and the fat guy from Minnesota. Go watch it. Last time Big Ten Ted and I were on live, I got all fired up. I probably didn't act all that professional. I didn't let Big Ten Ted get a word in edgewise. Same thing could happen tonight. Go check us out at Big Ten 10 YouTube channel. Now, let's get back. We have just cracked it open here. We've just cracked it open. USC. And then they're at home against Nebraska, Penn State, Rutgers, and Wisconsin. Holy smokes. Look at that home schedule for USC. USC, those Wisconsin fans, those Nebraska fans, your stadium is going to be packed. It's going to be jam-packed. There's going to be a lot of red in your football stadium, and you should want that. You do want that. It makes it so much more exciting. Wow. UCLA Bruins, their away games, 2024. Nebraska, Penn State, Rutgers, and Washington. Home games for UCLA, Indiana, Iowa, Minnesota, Oregon, and USC. Holy smokes. Iowa, going to fill up that Pasadena Rose Bowl. The Gopher fans are going to travel awfully well. They're a better traveling fan base than they are at going to their home games. That's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, now let's get to it. Michigan. This is Michigan's away schedule. Illinois, Indiana, they got to go to Buckeyes and Washington. At home, Michigan State, Minnesota, Northwestern, Oregon, USC. So Michigan has to play the Trojans, the Ducks, the Buckeyes, Washington. They play Washington, Oregon, USC. Right off the bat, 2024. 2024. Let's take a look at the Buckeyes schedule. Away games, Michigan State, Northwestern, Oregon, Penn State. At home, they got Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, Nebraska, Purdue. Tough road games at Oregon, Penn State. The rest of the schedule, no, the Buckeyes might have a little bit of advantage over the Wolverines and the other big-time schools in 2024. Illinois, away game. We'll go to Illinois next. We'll go take them in order now. Illinois, Nebraska, Northwestern, Oregon, Penn State, Rutgers on the road. So they got their rival Northwestern on the road. They're taking Eastern trips out to Penn State and Rutgers. Home games, Illinois, Michigan, Michigan State, Minnesota, Purdue. Now that is a workable schedule for Illinois. Indiana, away games, Michigan State, Northwestern, Ohio State, in UCLA. Indiana has to go out to the Rose Bowl. I bet they're jacked about that. They're excited. Indiana home games, Maryland, Michigan, Nebraska, Purdue, Washington. That's a nice home slate for the Hoosiers. A lot of tickets are going to be sold for the Hoosier home games. The Iowa Hawkeyes. We got Eisman 57 in the chat. We probably have Immaculate listening in. Iowa Hawkeyes, away games, Maryland, Michigan State. They got to go to Minnesota. They got to go to Ohio State, and Iowa's going to be taking the trip to Pasadena, California in the Rose Bowl. At home, Nebraska, Northwestern, Washington, and Wisconsin. Again, a lot of tickets are going to be being sold in Iowa City. That Nebraska, Iowa, jam-packed. Washington and Iowa, jam-packed. Iowa, Wisconsin, jam-packed. Here comes the Terrapins. What is their 2024 schedule looking like? They got away games, Indiana, Minnesota, Penn State in the first year in 2024. With the additions of the PAC schools, Maryland's going out to Oregon. Home games, they get 5 of them. Iowa, Michigan State, Northwestern, Rutgers, and USC. The Terrapins going out to California, Southern California, to play the Trojans. We've been through Michigan's schedule. Michigan State, away games in 2024. They're on the road going to Illinois, Maryland, Michigan, Oregon. At home against Indiana, Iowa, the Buckeyes, Purdue, and Rutgers. Now, home games, Iowa, Buckeyes, Indiana, Purdue, Rutgers. Those away games, Michigan, Oregon, Michigan State's schedule is, the matchup is there. Minnesota, my beloved Minnesota Golden Gophers. They have 4 home games, 5 away games for 2024. Illinois, Michigan, Rutgers, UCLA, and Wisconsin. Those are your road games. Going out to Pasadena, California, going against UCLA. Man, oh man, I think me and the little general, we're planning to go to that game. We just have to know the date of that game. Going out east against Rutgers. Michigan, of course, for the Little Brown Jug. We play them this Saturday night. And Wisconsin on the road to Madison, our chief rival, the Wisconsin Badgers. Plus, of course, with Iowa. Home games. Iowa Hawkeyes. Huntington Bank Stadium will be jam-packed. Against the Maryland Terrapins. Against the Penn State Nittany Lions. Jam-packed at Huntington Bank Stadium. And the USC Trojans. Do it. Do it, Tony Petiti. Do it. Schedule it. USC at Minnesota in November. Open your minds. Open your hearts. Open your creativity. Open up history. Trojans, Gophers in the frozen tundra of Minnesota in November. Just do it, Tony. Just do it. That's the call out to the Big Ten here at Peek Around the Corner on October 6th. Nebraska, who hasn't been to a bowl game in 6 years. If they can't beat Illinois tomorrow night at Illinois, Nebraska may not get to a bowl game for its 7th straight year. Let's look at their 2024 schedule. Away games against Indiana, Iowa, at Ohio State, Purdue, at USC, and then at home against Illinois, Rutgers, UCLA, and Wisconsin. That's going to be a very tough schedule for the Cornhuskers to make a bowl game next year. Matt Rule has a lot of work ahead of him. Northwestern schedule, away, Iowa, Maryland, Michigan, Purdue, Washington. At home, Illinois, Indiana, Buckeyes, and the Badgers. We've done the Oregon Ducks. We've done the Buckeyes. Let's take a look at the Penn State Nittany Lions. We'll get to your comments once I get through all the 2024 schedules. We'll take a glance ahead at the 2025, 26, 27, 28 once we get through your comments, and then we're going to get to your phone calls. Again, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. Smash that like button if you like our content. If you want your comment to be talked about, put down a donation to help us keep the lights on where the dollar sign is. You know the rest. Let's get to the Penn State Nittany Lions away games. Minnesota, Purdue, USC, and on the road to Wisconsin. Wisconsin, USC, Minnesota, Purdue at home. The Nittany Lions have 5 of them. Illinois, Maryland, the Buckeyes, UCLA, and Washington. Nittany Lion fans, you got what you wanted. You got what you wanted. No divisions. Penn State has no permanent rivals. Penn State is getting the schedule that they want. I hope the Nittany Lions fans are happy. Purdue Boilermakers, 5 away games. Illinois, Indiana, Michigan State, the Buckeyes, and Wisconsin. At home. Purdue gets at home. Nebraska, Northwestern, Oregon, Penn State. Look, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how you feel about this. I'll get to the rest here in a second. I will get to the rest of them here in a second. We'll get to Rutgers next. Look, with the 16-team SEC and the 18-team Big Ten, and now the ACC added some schools, but I just want to focus in the highly competitive Big 12 going forward, and how that is set up with the 16 schools. There is going to be a lot of 9-3 records. A lot of 9-3 records from schools that are used to going 11-1 or 10-2. Fan bases, you're going to have to bring down your expectations a little bit on your records. I'm talking about for the big time schools. I'm talking to you Buckeye fans, Wolverine fans. I'm talking to you USC. I'm talking to you Oregon. I'm talking to you Washington. I'm talking to you Nittany Lions. I'm talking to you Alabama. I'm talking to you Florida. And I'm talking to you Tennessee. And I'm talking to you Georgia. Maybe I'm not talking to Georgia right now. But I'm talking to you Texas and Oklahoma. There's going to be a lot of 9-3 records. And some of those 9-3 records are going to get to the 12-team playoffs. The goal is the playoffs. But there's going to be a whole lot of 9-3 records. There's going to be a lot less 10-2, 11-1, and 12-0. Do you agree with me, guys and gals in the chat? And for the rest of us, which is the most of us, like the Minnesota Golden Gophers, Purdue, Iowa, I would throw UCLA in there. For the rest of us, it's going to be It's going to have to be a grind. We're going to have fun with jam-packed stadiums. Try to get to that 6-6 record to get to a bowl game. And once in a while, shoot the moon, have a senior-laden roster, and go for it, and maybe get that 9-3 record, maybe sneak in to the college football playoffs. But these schedules, it's loaded, baby. It's loaded. And this is exactly what I wanted, what most of you wanted. Expanded playoffs, but more big-time schools playing big-time schools more often. This is what we're getting. This is what we're getting. Richard Celino, Oregon and Washington have the toughest schedule. Look, I don't know. I mean, we'll take a deeper dive in this. My head is spinning. I mean, we haven't gone through all this. All of them look tough to me. Don't all of them look tough to me? Don't they look tough to you? I mean, who's got an easy schedule here? Jeff Olson says 12 rivalries are protected. Moen Sports asks a great question. Do they keep Notre Dame on the schedule? Does USC keep Notre Dame on the schedule? Great question by Moen Sports. Oh, let's take a quick look at USC schedule 2024. Michigan, Washington, UCLA, Penn State, Wisconsin. That's a pretty tough schedule. And then those middling schools, those teams that supposedly aren't that good, well, bring USC into Minnesota. We'll see what happens. Okay, let's get to the rest of these schools here. Rutgers, away games. Maryland, that's a protected rivalry. I believe it is. Michigan State, Nebraska, USC. So Rutgers going way out to Southern California to play the Trojans. Home games for Rutgers. Illinois, Minnesota, UCLA, Washington, and Wisconsin. The UCLA Bruins, the first year as a Big Ten school. I'm sorry, let me put this back up. UCLA, first year as a Big Ten school, away games. They go to Nebraska. They go all the way out to Penn State. Happy Valley. They play at Rutgers on the road to Washington. So they got two road games, Nebraska and Washington. Somewhat, kind of, sort of, not too far away, although Nebraska's by themselves, Lincoln's over 1,000 miles away. But that's their road trips. Nebraska, Penn State, Rutgers, Washington, at home, in the Rose Bowl. Indiana, Iowa, Minnesota, Oregon, and USC. The Trojans, we've done those. Washington, we did that. And now Wisconsin, the last schedule. Iowa, Nebraska, Northwestern, Rutgers, and USC on the road. And at home, Wisconsin will have Minnesota, the Oregon Ducks, the Penn State Nittany Lions, and Purdue. Wow. So let's get to your comments. I'm going to check out the Twitter to see about any new information coming out. Give me a second. Just got to make some adjustments here. Holy smokes. A lot of news about Northwestern, about Fitzgerald, about Mel Tucker. If you want to call and talk about it, that's fine. Or put a donation in and talk about it in the comment section. We'll talk about it. But other than that, I'm staying away from those stories because we got a Big Ten Big Ten conference schedules to discuss. Taking another quick look here. Okay. Moen Sports, Tez Walker has been ruled eligible for North Carolina. Much like the Minnesota Golden Gophers safety Craig McDonald, who was just ruled eligible. That's going to help North Carolina a lot. Tez Walker, congratulations. North Carolina is going to be very difficult. Very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. Tough out for Clemson. I don't know if North Carolina plays. They don't play Notre Dame. But anyways, we'll take a look at that. Moen Sports says NCAA says that North Carolina provided new information. So Walker is eligible to play immediately. They also scolded UNC for their public relations campaign. God, I want 9-3. Lowered expectations are so Big Ten West. Everybody's going to have to lower their expectations because you're going to have tougher schedules. If you don't want to, that's fine. That's fine. That's up to you. That's up to you. Oregon's playing Michigan, Ohio State, and Washington. And he's saying Oregon has the hardest schedule while the Trojans gets a cupcake schedule, missing the big boys combined. Let me open up the phone lines. Phone lines are open 763-260-1333, 763-260-1333. Phone lines are now open. You can call in, talk about anything you want, college football. Mainly the big story is the Big Ten has released their matchups for 2024. They also released them for 2025, 26, 27, and 28. They released 5 of them. 5 of them. Riley believes that USC plan is to keep Notre Dame on their football schedule. I'm looking for, okay, here we go. So there's a lot of complaints about maybe USC has an easier schedule than Washington and Oregon and all that stuff. Let's take a look.
Call from
Moen,
Mr. Buckeye, the floor is yours. What do you got to say about these matchups?
I say they look fantastic, Greg. I am ecstatic with them. I can't wait to fly out to Oregon to see that game. Can't wait to visit Washington for the first time. However, interesting enough, 9 conference games still.
Yes.
There is not a 10th conference game listed there yet. And although we know there are some protected rivalries, we did not get the infographic that we did last time. You remember last release, we had an infographic that showed everybody's protected rivals.
Yeah.
We didn't get that this time.
No. And I can't, and I'm not even sure I mean, I haven't even seen anything. Now, Big Ten Ted put out in the comments that it's Oregon and Washington, and I saw that, but that's a protected rival. But I haven't seen anything that indicates that Oregon has more than one protected rival, and Washington has one protected rival. That hasn't been confirmed or denied. It just seems to be left open.
Well, like I said, you can go through the schedule. I think there's 12 or 13 that I've seen so far that are 12 to 13 protected rivalries.
Oh, if you go through the 5-year matchups? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the interesting part is we didn't get the infographic on it.
Yes.
And we don't have a 10th conference game.
Yes.
So I wonder why we wouldn't have rivalries yet, or we wouldn't have a 10th conference game yet. It just makes sense to me to have permanent rivals in 10 conference games if you're a 20-team conference.
Yes.
And right now we're at 18 teams. So I know a lot of people might think this might exclude future expansion, but keep in mind we had a 2024-2025 schedule just up until a few months ago. So entirely possible this all gets rearranged. 2024 should be solid, but 2025 and beyond, this could all get thrown up in the air.
I've just noticed that Oregon and USC don't play each other in 2027. So that's not a protected rival. Okay.
Right, but it's just like there's only I think 13 is what I counted. I could be wrong. I could be off.
Okay.
I counted 13. It might be 12 or 14 or 15. But, just interesting we didn't get that infographic.
Yeah.
Because last time they were all about that infographic of these are the protected rivals and protecting traditions. And this time it's just like, no, here's your 5 years. This almost looks like something a computer spit out, too.
Yeah.
Like this scheduling model is like, hey, we're not spending too much time on this because we might have to redo it again. So, very, very interesting.
Well, maybe they won't do that 10th conference game until SEC moves to 9, and or when the Big Ten makes that decision if they're going to have a semifinal weekend, and that'll be the 10th conference game.
Yeah, and you need 2 more teams, I think, to pull off that 10 conference game schedule. You need at least 2 more teams. But it's this could also be they could be putting this out here to show people what to show advertisers what they have to look forward to, bump up some of those advertising rates, especially for these primetime games.
Yeah.
Because, you have to think a lot of these November games are going to be West Coast teams.
Yes, except
USC.
There has to be an exception in there. They got to have USC Minnesota in November. God. When
of all those November games you want.
Well, when they finally come out with the actual schedule, not just the matchups, the dates of the game,
right?
And it's USC at Minnesota in the second week in September. I probably will destroy the studio in anger. I will be very upset. I don't want USC coming in here second week in September. Bring them into November. But
they want to use Minnesota as their warm-up game, Greg.
Yeah, well. We got to get them in here in November. If you want something different for the fans to watch, have USC come in the cold in November in Minneapolis. Well,
hey, I'm all for it, Greg. Yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah. I mean, you remember when the Buckeyes did that under Urban Meyer? The Snow Flurries? It was the Buckeyes in Minnesota.
Yeah, I remember. It was 35-28, I think, was the final.
That was a tough game, and Urban Meyer says, don't want to go up there again in November. Just bring USC in here. Bring the Los Angeles boys in here. Let's go. Let's do it.
It's there's exciting matchups here, Greg.
Yeah.
But I'm still thinking that this could all get thrown up in the air if they add 2 more teams. So
Yeah,
we'll have to see what the ACC.
Yeah, I mean, the earliest implosion for any of that to happen, boy, I don't see. Well, I better be careful.
Well, it can't be 2024. It would have to be 2025. So I think your 2024 season is secure. I think 2025 would be the earliest.
Yeah. Well, I'll go back to what Brett McMurphy said on 365 Sports just last week. He said he doesn't see North Carolina, Clemson, and Florida State. He doesn't see any of those schools being in the ACC more than 3 years from now. So he doesn't see any of those schools playing in the ACC in 2027. Those were his words. And
and you know,
yeah.
I'm all about conspiracy theories.
Yes.
My friend Immaculate's all about conspiracy theories.
Yes, sir.
Now, my conspiracy theory is maybe this is leaked out to force the SEC's hand to make more expansion moves so the Big Ten can make more expansion moves.
Yeah.
Maybe this is the Big Ten showing the SEC, look at our matchups. And now ESPN and the SEC say, oh, we need better matchups, so let's go take Clemson. And the Big Ten can have North Carolina and Florida State.
Now, of course, SEC, I mean, they're pretty well stacked. I don't know if they don't need better matchups. It's not like the Big Ten. What they needed
they only have
but
they
need
8 conference games, Greg.
Well, they only have 8 conference games. They really need to move to 9 conference games. And they really need to get into a bigger they really need to get into North Carolina and Virginia. They need more population. Get SEC country to grow up in there. That's what I think they need. And that they want.
By all means, I would gladly give them North Carolina State and the University of Virginia if we can have UNC and Florida State. I think that's a completely fair trade.
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
Yeah. Wow.
But I thought that was interesting, Greg. I wanted to point out there was no infographic. There was an infographic last time.
Yeah.
And we're not at 10 conference games yet.
Yeah.
And this could all go away from 2025 on. So I'm just going to focus on the here and now. I'm going to focus on 2024.
Yes.
I want to see the date of that Oregon game. I got to get my travel arrangements ready.
Yes.
I'm going to Autzen. I hear they've got several things to enjoy yourself with out there. So I'm going to enjoy myself, Greg.
The Buckeyes road games are Oregon, Penn State, Michigan State, Northwestern. So the new one there is going to Oregon. That's going to be a lot of fun.
That will be fun. Bucks versus Ducks.
Yeah.
You know that Penn State game is a whiteout game.
Yes.
That's guaranteed. That's a whiteout game on NBC.
Yes.
Guaranteed. So that one won't be fun.
Yeah.
But the Oregon one, that's my game. That's the game I'm going to next
Beautiful.
year. So I will send you reports from Oregon, Greg.
Got it. Thanks, man. 2024. Beautiful. Thanks for the call.
Yep.
All right. Mo Envision, Mr. Buckeye, John Teal. If 3 leave ACC, does that let in Oregon State, Washington State, and Tulane? John with these good comments about when those 3 ACC schools leave. Those are 3 really good candidates, John, if that should happen. I know people are still talking about Oregon State and Washington State possibly going to the Big 12. Again, we've heard nothing of that. We've only heard that it's not going to happen. But could it happen? Could things change? Obviously they could. But we've been told There's been no real talks on that at all. Like none. So we'll see what happens here. But if it changes, if I'm told it changes, I'm going to report to you that as soon as possible. We've asked, and we keep being told it's not happening as of now. There's been no... Brett Yormark has had no real talks with Oregon State and Washington State. So therefore, if Oregon State and Washington State can park themselves in the Mountain West, or they do the reverse merger, and the ACC implodes, but the ACC doesn't explode to the point where they don't survive, right? They've already made moves to assure their survival by adding to Stanford, California, and SMU. They've added numbers. Washington State and Oregon State would be very good candidates for a backfill of the ACC. Have that West Coast pod out there. It makes a whole lot of sense to me. Makes a whole lot of sense to me. Thank you so much for the super chat, John. I appreciate it. I'm going to let's get to. Now I don't want to go out too much. I just want to go through the 2025 real quick here. This is 2025. Just scanning to see anything interesting. Now the Buckeyes, the Ohio State Buckeyes in 2024, their only Pac-12 opponent is Oregon, former Pac-12 schools. But in 2025, the Buckeyes will play away at Washington, at home against UCLA. Now I see Oregon is at home, Minnesota, USC, Washington, Indiana, on the road at Iowa, Penn State, Northwestern, Rutgers, and Washington. This is the 2025 schedule. Penn State would be at home against Oregon, on the road against UCLA. Nebraska, at home against USC, Michigan, Iowa, Michigan State. Great home schedule for the Cornhuskers. They'd be on the road against Maryland, Minnesota, Penn State, and UCLA. A tough road schedule for Nebraska in 2025. They haven't beaten the Gophers in 5 years. They have to go on the road to Penn State. Minnesota, their 2025 home schedule will be Michigan State, Nebraska, Purdue, Rutgers, and Wisconsin. On the road at Iowa, at Ohio State, at Oregon. Oh, we're in trouble there. We are in trouble there. Michigan, 2025 schedule. Away, Maryland, Michigan State, Nebraska, Northwestern, USC. At home against the Buckeyes, Washington, Wisconsin, and Purdue. Anyways, those are your 2025 schedule. Anyways, it's a new time in college football. For the Big Ten, for the SEC, when they come out with their Texas and Oklahoma 16-team matchup schedule for 2024. It's going to be a new time for the ACC. It's going to be a big new time for the Big 12. Holy smokes. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. Again, the phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. But now, confirmed, right? 2024 matchups have appeared, correct? Correct? Oregon and Washington. Congratulations. Football, Big Ten schedule, matchups. And we're going to go through it again for the newcomers. Oregon. Away, Michigan, Purdue, UCLA, and Wisconsin. The Oregon fans going to Wisconsin. Illinois, Maryland, Michigan State, Buckeyes, and Washington at home. The Washington Huskies away, Indiana, Iowa, Oregon, Penn State, Rutgers. At home, Michigan, Northwestern, UCLA, USC. Washington Husky fans, you're going to have more people watching your games than ever before. Big Ten country watches Big Ten football. Crab Cakes, you're on the line.
How you doing, buddy?
Good. Exciting times. What do you think about the 2024 matchups for your beloved Terrapins?
So you say we have a chance.
Let's go through Maryland real quick here. Let's go through Maryland.
Man.
Away games: Indiana, Minnesota, Oregon, Penn State. You're at home against Iowa, Michigan State, Northwestern, Rutgers, and you get the USC Trojans. Not too bad.
I see, not too bad. And there's, I see 4 teams. USC, Penn State, Oregon, and I forget the other one.
Iowa.
I'm driving Iowa.
Yeah.
That really stick off the page as like, okay. Those,
Yeah.
And next year we're going to be taking a step back, so I'm not expecting anything next year.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I'm excited about it personally because I notice I don't see Ohio State on there. Yay me! At least that's
you don't see Michigan.
Don't see Michigan, which before in the other one they were on there, so
yes.
they took them off of us.
Yeah.
So we don't see Michigan. So, I like new matchups. I like new, even playing the Golden Gophers again, playing Iowa again. Spreading the ball around, and it's not so. You don't really, and when they come out with the schedule now, it's like it feels brand new and not like, oh boy, you're getting the same powerhouse 3 teams,
yes,
and occasionally 4 teams every single time. Then you got to play the other side. There is no more other side. Now it's your schedule is your schedule. Everybody's going to have it hard. Everybody's going to have a little bit of easy. Everybody's going to have a little bit of mediocre. So, and I think it's a perfect schedule.
Yeah, it is. It's just, look, I got to warn my Minnesota Golden Gopher fans. We're going to get a psychological blow here. Before the last 3 or 4 years, the Gophers have emerged as basically the 3rd best team in the Big Ten West. If you look at the overall records, definitely the 3rd best team in the Big Ten West over the last 5-6 years. We're used to having that number 3 written next to the Minnesota Golden Gophers name when we open up those magazines, preseason magazines. Now what number are we going to see when we open up those preseason magazines next to Minnesota? We're going to be seeing that number 15, that number 16, right?
When I see Washington, Oregon, UCLA, and USC come to Minnesota and play a night game in November.
Yeah, I want to see it.
I heard you going off early. I was laughing so hard I couldn't. Yeah. I was sitting there like, I want to see that too. Because they're going to taper it for, sunny. We want the sunny. Well, what about the cold? I mean, that's part of it too. They need to be fair about it.
Yes.
So I hope they do a couple of cold games.
They better do it.
Yeah.
They better do it.
I think that would be perfect.
I'm gonna explode. I'm gonna explode if they do it, not do it, and I'm gonna explode if they do it. So I'm exploding either way.
But I will say this, the team that I really did not want out of all the teams that are on the West Coast, I did not want Oregon. We got a little uniform thing.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Now that it's a reality.
Yes.
I've actually come around to it. We got to have a uniform game. We might get blown out by 100. They might lose by whatever. It don't matter.
Yeah.
We've got to see the Under Armour versus Nike.
Yes.
Just come up with something stupid, crazy for that one every time we play. I just want to see the uniform game.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
so.
Absolutely. Maryland plays at Oregon. 2024. The uniform game. That's beautiful. Beautiful.
I mean, I could see both companies coming up with something special for that day.
Yeah.
I mean, how could you pass on that marketing? I mean, that is like 100% chance for marketing right there. That would probably be the most brightly colored, HDMI, high definition TV, biggest pixels thing you can get, and just put it on there and watch the game because it could get bright. A lot of colors too.
Yeah.
So
yes.
I hope they do it. I really do.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
And I'm excited to see some of these teams come to our raggedy old stadium. We don't have exactly the prettiest stadium in the world or the biggest stadium in the world. And I would like to see how they're going to do when they step on our turf and then vice versa when we go out west.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I know you probably got some Immaculate or others that want to call through, so I'll go ahead and let them have their chance. But I'm excited for the new schedule. It was refreshing to see balance and not just so one heavy like we've had for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And anybody that can actually call a schedule and look at it would say it was unfair.
Yeah.
I mean, but we took it. We took it on the chin. We did it. We got our stripes the hard way. So, now I think it's a fair schedule. I mean, I think there's more there for the student athlete, for the NBC, for the Big Ten, and for the viewer. I think everybody wins.
Beautiful. Everybody wins, except for Minnesota. But yes, everybody else wins.
Or us next year, unless Loxley pulls out a miracle somehow.
Got it.
Because we're looking to lose like half of our team or more.
Yeah.
So all right, man.
All right, man.
I just wanted to give you a call. If you have another live show later, I'll call you. But
you
all
got
right,
it.
Later.
Thank you, Mr. Terry. Beautiful, beautiful.
Call from
ABO Prep.
Soap is on the line. What do you got to say, sir? The floor is yours.
Oh, good. Thank you. Good afternoon to you, Greg.
Good afternoon. Exciting times.
Yeah, very excited. I have a question for you, and I know I'm going to beat a dead horse here, but I've got two questions. The first question is, as a Big Ten fan, what do you think about this schedule? Would you support this schedule with Michigan playing Ohio State, Michigan State, Iowa, Oregon, Penn State, USC, Washington, and Wisconsin? And all of those teams playing each other. Every week there would be one of those games taking place, and all of those teams would be playing each other each week. That's pretty exciting. That's Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan State, Iowa, Oregon, Pennsylvania, or Penn State, USC, Washington, and Wisconsin. Now that's question one. Question two, Greg, is do you think that your beloved Golden Gophers would be able to qualify for one of the at-large seats in the playoff championship with the schedule they have this come in 2024, or if they had to schedule Illinois, Indiana, Maryland, Nebraska, Northwestern, Purdue, Rutgers, and UCLA. Now, I know that we're, you have the Wisconsin and Iowa games, and there are they remain as matchups that would need to be done every year. But just from those eight teams there. That's Illinois, Indiana, Maryland, Nebraska, Northwestern, Purdue, Rutgers, and UCLA. I think Minnesota puts up a pretty good number there in wins and looks very, let's use the term sexy to the CPF. And so where I'm going here, Greg, of course, is some type of I don't want to use the term relegation league, but division.
Yeah, I know.
Divisions.
I'll answer your question.
Thank you.
Obviously, the Minnesota Golden Gophers would have a better chance on the second schedule you gave out. But they wouldn't have much of a chance either way. And in reality is, I'd rather have the first. I want to play the big teams as much as I want to play all the other teams in the Big Ten. I want a balanced schedule throughout the conference. I understand the regulation piece you're putting out. I don't think it belongs in Big Ten football. I don't think it's ever going to get there with Big Ten football. I understand other conferences are looking at it as a possible experiment to try to get games to mean more because you might get regulated down or going up. I don't want plan B. The Gophers have already had the easiest schedule of the last 10 years. And the only year that the Golden Gophers would have made the expanded playoffs was 2019. And they beat Penn State that year. They beat an undefeated Penn State that year. Two teams were 8-0, 8-0. So, now, give me the same schedule everyone else has. Let's play. I might be, people might knock on me for having lower expectations and everything. That's natural. As a Gopher fan, 50 years, we know our place. It doesn't mean we don't hope and dream. I'm going to be hoping and dreaming of the Gophers making the 12-team expanded playoffs, just like everybody else. But there's also this thing called reality. There's also this thing called there's a whole bunch that goes into whether a program is at the highest level or is at the average level of college football. We know where we are. We know our disadvantages, and they are great disadvantages. Some of it is we put on to ourselves. We have the tightest, restricted transfer portal players have a very difficult time going into Minnesota. There's a whole bunch of things that line up against Minnesota. We are a pro sports town. We're not Iowa. We're not Nebraska. We are pro sports. This place is inundated by pro sports. It's tough to be a Gopher. But I wouldn't want the easier schedule. I want how we have it now. I'm still going to hope. I'm still going to dream. I'm still going to watch. I'm going to be rooting for a big upset this Saturday against Michigan. I don't want to play just Illinois, Indiana, Michigan State like they are now, Nebraska, who we beat upon 5 straight years. Don't want that. Don't need it. Don't want it. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. I asked a legitimate question, and you gave me an honest and truthful answer.
Yeah.
And to the second question, and I respect that.
Yeah.
But I'm asking for an answer to the first question as well. As a fan of the Big Ten,
yes,
wouldn't you rather see Ohio State play Iowa, Oregon, USC, Washington, Wisconsin, as opposed to playing Rutgers, Northwestern, and Nebraska? I mean, they're paying billions of dollars for these TV rights. They should get the best games.
But there's already enough big games to fill up those slots. Now you have a schedule where NBC is only going to be having one game a week. Fox is only going to be having one game a week. The games are already there. No, I'm sorry. I want Rutgers Stadium to be packed because they're playing the Buckeyes. I want that sort of stuff. So, no, honestly, I'd have to say no. The schedules are stacked. If you're asking, do I want to see the Big Ten split down the middle, have it regulated between the 9 schools that don't look like they're ever going to win a national championship, between the 9 that possibly can? No, I don't want to see that. If they want to fracture in the future, if the top 8 or 9 schools want to fracture and kick out these big market schools, these schools that have been around for 100 years in the Big Ten, then go ahead, go for it. But in the meantime, no, I don't want to see that. So 100% don't want to see that.
That's a fair answer, Greg, and I appreciate it. I
Yeah.
hope you can understand from someone from Texas
Yeah.
who is just kind of getting, really hasn't followed Big Ten
Sure.
football for a long time. And I'm into it. I'm looking at it and go, gosh, I would love to see this team play this team. But you get these lopsided matchups. So understand my position. And,
Sure.
And I hope I didn't.
Sure. No, that's
disrespect
okay.
Your thoughts.
Let me say one other thing. We have lopsided matchups, no question about it. But we've also seen the Minnesota Golden Gophers beat the 1977 Michigan when they shouldn't have. They defeated Penn State when they were the number one ranked team in 1999 when they shouldn't have. These so-called middling Big Ten schools once in a while come up and they beat the Big Ten schools, right? It happens every once in a while. So, no, I'm a Big Ten.
I just
yep.
The likelihood of that being on TV though is a shot in the dark because having Northwestern playing Penn State is it's very unlikely that they're going to.
I'll just refer you back to 2019, 4 years ago. Minnesota. Okay. Nobody predicted them to go 11-2. Nobody predicted them to beat an undefeated Penn State at home. Nobody predicted Minnesota to win a January 1st bowl game against Auburn SEC team and make them. One team was the bully in that game, the other one wasn't, and the bully wasn't Auburn. That's all I'm going to say. Let us dream here in Minnesota. Once in a while, we have a good team. Once in a while, look, Iowa's going to be prominent once again. It's going to take them years probably to regroup after this. If those top Big Ten schools want to leave, fracture the conference, think they're going to get a better deal, whatever the reasoning is, then go for it. We'll cover that story when it happens. But this regulation, it's not going to happen anyways, but I don't want it to happen. So, okay.
Well, I appreciate that, Greg. Thank you for allowing me to voice my opinion. And as always, my best to you, your family, and I really enjoy the show.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Mr. Soap. Big Ten Ted said that the Big Ten Network did show, they do have it up there. Let me put it up on the screen real quick here. Give me a second, everybody. Hold on. They do have the protected rivals listed. And here we are. These are the Big Ten protected rivalries. Illinois Northwestern, Illinois Purdue, Indiana Purdue, Iowa Minnesota, Iowa Nebraska, Iowa Wisconsin. So that's 6 of them. Maryland Rutgers, Michigan Michigan State, Michigan Ohio State, Michigan Wisconsin, Oregon Washington, UCLA and USC. So Big Ten, Ted, I thank you so much. There is 12 of them. There is 12 protected rivals. Oregon and Washington's a protected rival. UCLA and USC is a protected rival. But Oregon and USC is not. Washington, UCLA is not. Okay? Interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting. Again, take another look at that. Illinois has 2 protected rivals. Purdue has 2 protected rivals. Indiana has 1. Iowa has 3. 3 protected rivals. Minnesota has a couple. Wisconsin, Iowa. If you notice, Nebraska has 1 with Iowa. Penn State has 0 protected rivals. Okay. So they do have those locked in now. 12 protected rivals. Richard Celino says that USC and Oregon should be a protected rival. USC is waiting on Notre Dame. The Walking Geek says that. Maybe that's why USC only has 1 protected rival. Gerald McKinley brings up a very good point. Penn State with 0 protected rivals makes me think they're counting on ACC teams at some point. Michigan State should not be a rival of Michigan anymore. Interesting point by Mr. McKinley. So McKinley is thinking maybe, if a North Carolina, Florida State comes into the conference, that one of those schools or both would become Penn State's permanent rivals. Very good thinking by Gerald McKinley. I think it has a lot of logic to it. Skolducky, I'm just happy Oregon will play at least 1 Los Angeles school every year, at least with the years they've released. I did not notice that. Thank you, Skolducky, for bringing that up. They'll probably try to do that going forward. Exciting times, man. Exciting times. Moen Sports wants that Illinois-Ohio State protected rival. I want the Minnesota-Michigan protected rival. I know we're not a rival of Michigan. I mean, not competitively speaking, but historically speaking, we are. Minnesota, besides Iowa and Wisconsin, Michigan was our team that Minnesota played. Mostly got killed, but it was a heated rival. Now I don't think Michigan doesn't think of us at all anymore, but we think a lot of Michigan here at Minnesota. And Nebraska's only got that protected rival with Iowa. And it should be. It's a new rival, but it's heated. It's the border rival. They hate each other. They hate each other. Holy smokes. Man, and it's not just on the field. It's off the field. It's the recruiting wars. Iowa, Nebraska, it's a protected rival, and it needs to be. And Iowa, Minnesota has to be a protected rival, and it is. And Iowa, Wisconsin. So, again, this flex plan, protected rival, I think pretty much everybody's good with it. Maybe a couple years down the road, maybe the Buckeyes or the Wolverines will say, hey, Penn State should have a protected rival. If there's no more expansion, maybe USC and Penn State needs to be a protected rival. Or if there is expansion, maybe the Wolverines and the Buckeye fans and other fans are going to say Penn State should be a protected rival with Florida State, let's say. Maybe that happens. But for now, I think everybody, as far as I can see, everybody's pretty happy with the flex protected rivalry type of thing that's going on in the Big Ten. Let me know if I got it wrong. Let me know if you've got a complaint. Give us a phone call. The phone lines are open. Phone lines are open.
Call from
Grateful Trojan.
Grateful Trojan. Mr. Trojan is on the line. Thanks for calling. I haven't heard from you for a long time. You got to be pretty excited, huh? Or do I got it wrong?
Oh, I'm thrilled. We've all been waiting for this day ever since Oregon and Washington finally broke through and got into the Big.
Yes.
So it's a great day. It's exciting, man. It's
beautiful.
exciting. I see a lot of comments about USC getting a week schedule on this schedule, and I'd have to disagree with that.
I don't see it. I don't see it as weak. Nope.
Right. Going to the Big House is definitely not going to be easy.
No. Yes. Yeah.
Which originally they were planned to come out here, so that flipped.
Yes.
We do have Penn State at home instead of going there, so that flipped. So that's exciting.
Yes.
And the non-conference, just having LSU in a neutral site and Notre Dame at home, just adds to an already tough gauntlet.
Man, oh man. Exciting times for Trojan fans, I tell you that. Holy smokes.
And we're going to be going in without Caleb. I mean, that's another factor you got to think about. And that same thing goes with Oregon's not going to have Nick.
Yes, sir.
And Washington's not going to have
Penix Jr.
Escaping me.
Penix Jr.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, it's going to be a challenge for the Pac-4 to come in and play that schedule for sure.
Yeah, this is that's not an easy schedule. Man, it's going to be fun. This is going to be a blast. USC at the Big House, conference game. USC, you got your UCLA and Washington. You're going to be on the road. Then at home you're going to bring Nebraska fans. I tell you, I know you play in the Coliseum. I know you got a big old stadium there. Whatever seats available is going to be taken up. Grateful Trojan. USC is going to be selling these.
I've had the fortunate experience of seeing Nebraska travel to Boulder, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I went to a game, Sue's last year in Nebraska, and it was probably a good 60 to 70% Husker fans.
Yeah.
In Folsom Field. Yeah. And it was a great experience. They're great fans. They're a great fan base. They were nothing but polite, and it was a really cool experience.
Then you got the Badger fans. They're going to be going out. There's going to be, whatever. I don't know around the Coliseum there. I'm guessing you got a whole bunch of bars, right? A whole bunch of restaurants, hotels, right?
Yeah, not as much as most college campuses.
Okay.
We're a little bit south of downtown, and there's not as much there, but there's still
sure,
a good bar scene.
Well, when the Wisconsin goes down, there's a lot of people going to be making a lot of money who are tied in with USC Trojans with these new schedules that are coming out.
And these networks, I mean, they have so many games to choose from on a week-to-week basis to fulfill, their obligations, and I did notice, someone was posting the numbers that NBC has been seeing so far, and with the schedule, like, they're potentially going to get with the second choice, it's not going to be that way moving forward. Yeah, it's absolutely. And this gets back to and I'm sorry to bring this up on your phone call. You'll get as much time as you want, USC Trojan, Grateful Trojan. But it gets back to, going into 2024, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, these plethora of games that NBC, Fox, CBS is going to be able to pick from. And then the fourth game goes to Peacock and the Big Ten Network. They're going to still get some good games. How does that measure up to what NBC is going to get with the 7 home game slate of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, right? It doesn't compare.
It doesn't compare. So how does Notre Dame going to get 65, 60 million a year?
Wake Forest.
Yeah. Plus, I'm sorry, Grateful Trojan. I'll let you have the floor the rest of the way. But, and this is going to be something different. When USC is playing, you know what? I was going to say the USC Michigan example. I'm going to give you the USC Washington example. When USC goes on the road in 2024 and plays Washington, you're going to get so many more people interested, watching it, talking about it on Twitter. the message boards, the YouTube channel, because Big Ten country is going to be interested more in that Washington USC game than Pac-12 country was over the last few years. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be a great sample size because we have them coming up here shortly.
Yes.
And I'm guessing that we'll probably pull 4 to 5 million viewers.
Oh, yeah.
You know, with it being the Pac-12 matchup, whereas it's going to be probably an 8 million, close to that range as a Big Ten matchup, just with the Big Ten.
Depending on how the teams are doing and everything, that has a lot to do with it. But I'm just talking,
of course,
like an average, everything trying to be the same. Big Ten country's going to watch, be more interested, going to know who the left tackle is of USC versus the Pac-12. And I'm not ripping on Pac-12 schools, the other schools. I'm just saying that the football, drinking it in, eating it in, soaking it in is different in Big Ten country than it is in Pac-12 country. That's why you have the viewership numbers difference. And I think USC and I think you're going to notice that right away. You're going to be having Twitter accounts and people saying Grateful Trojan, yada, 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 you know nothing. You're going to have more of that stuff going on going forward for Trojan fans. It's going to be an exciting time for the Trojans. Beautiful.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And then kind of just going back to, what is USC going to do with Notre Dame moving forward?
Yes.
That's kind of the elephant in the room for everybody, really. It's, I feel like once we're integrated completely and we're going to take some L's. I mean, I'm not saying we're going to walk through any schedule whatsoever with the Big Ten. But once we start being kind of a borderline playoff team and Notre Dame potentially being a deciding factor of whether we get in or not as a non-conference opponent, I mean, there's going to have to be a tough conversation of, hey, do we still continue to put them on the schedule for a potential loss that could make or break whether or not we make it into the playoffs? It's a hard conversation that's going to probably have to be had within the next 3 to 4 years. And obviously a lot of it depends on what goes on with Notre Dame television rights. But a major factor that they have, one of their chips on the table, is saying that they have USC once every 2 years on that schedule.
Yeah.
So that could definitely affect whether or not they're getting the money that they need to get.
Yeah. Now, Grateful Trojan. I don't know how much pull you got over there in Southern California. I don't know if you have Tony Petitti's personal phone number or not. But if you do, Grateful Trojan, if you do, give him a call. Say you've been listening to the fat guy from Minnesota and that you want USC to come to Minnesota next year, 2024, as it's scheduled, but you want the Trojans to come here in November. Make it happen, Grateful Trojan. Make it happen.
I'd be happy to do that because that whole myth of us traveling in November could easily be squashed with a nice showing by the Trojans up in Minnesota.
Yeah,
in
let's break that myth. Let's get that myth over with. You're correct, Grateful Trojan. I agree with you. USC up in Minnesota, November. USC kills Minnesota. We'll finally get the myth over with. But until then, I'm going to milk it for everything it has, Richard. Grateful. So.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
And once you start seeing these dates, that's the next step of the way now. We need to see the dates and so much speculation that can go with that as well. It's how much fun is this? This is the new age of college football. When you see gauntlets like that, instead of having 2 to 3 solid games on your schedule, you have seven games where you're like, oh man, that's you're playing.
And with the expanded playoffs, you're the USC Trojans. you're calculating it, right? You're thinking, with this schedule, we go 9-3, we finish 4th in the Big Ten, whatever. We got a good shot, get to the playoffs, 9-3. Let's say, we go through our schedule. I'll go through it right now, in fact. Michigan, Washington, Penn State, Wisconsin. We go 2-2 in those games. We got a real good shot at getting to the playoffs, right?
Agreed.
It's going to be a whole different calculation.
I think that the three-loss team is going to be a new norm getting into that 12 team, depending on the strength of schedule.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is going to force the hand of other conferences to start scheduling their best teams against each other in order to get the strength of schedule up. Because the SEC likes to pad their stats a little bit.
Yeah.
So let's see what they do in reaction to this.
Yeah, I hope they go to 9 conference games. Having that fourth non-conference game against the Citadel in the first week in November is embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing, and it should be to the point where you've got to make the move. After looking at the Big Ten schedule, what the Big Ten, which their networks are going to throw at you every single week throughout the season, I mean, even the permanent rival games, they have to be. Okay, we have permanent rival games, but we also have the permanent rival games, in which I'm talking about. Minnesota and Wisconsin always play the last game of the year. The Buckeyes in Michigan always play the last game of the year. Go on and on and on. You have those matchups. Those are going to have to be spread out now throughout the season. Michigan and Ohio State, they're probably going to stay the last game of the season, right? I don't know how you move that.
And you're right. They are going to have to break some of them up in order to get the time slots on the days that they want. Exactly.
Are you going to want Washington at Oregon? I mean, you got to spread that apart too. But getting back to your point, with the plethora of big games that the Big Ten could throw at the networks throughout the season, and the SEC has these big matchups, we understand that. But they also have some weak points just because they're sitting at 8 conference games. They're going to have to make the move. No question about it.
I think they might even might see the fact that if Alabama beats Georgia in the conference championship game this year, what does Georgia have on their resume to justify them even getting in? Yeah. I mean, it's such a powder puff schedule that if Bama upsets them, they might be on the outside looking in on the playoffs this year.
Yeah. Yeah. No, well, you make a good point. You make another good point. They're going to have to, the more I think about it, Moen made the exact same point earlier in the show. SEC is going to have to make a move here. The Big Ten, not only have they stuck with 9 conference games, and not only have they made at least plans of some sort to go to 10 conference games, the big-time schools in the Big Ten have also said, hey, we're going to play each other as much as possible. We're not going to be stuck in divisions. We're not going to be stuck in the pods. We're going to play each other as much as possible. The Big Ten big helmet schools have laid down the gauntlet to the Alabama, to the Georgias, to the Floridas. That's exactly what has happened here.
Definitely. Definitely, I agree with that. And how exciting is it going to be as fans to watch that take place, Yeah.
Yeah. All righty, man.
But always a good time talking to you, Greg. Always a great show.
Appreciate
you, man.
Appreciate it, Grateful Trojan. All right.
Take care.
Grateful Trojan, USC, Big Ten 2024. Again, we'll take a look at their schedule. I agree with Grateful Trojan. I don't think it's an easy schedule. Away game, Maryland, Michigan, Minnesota in November, because I'm going to make it happen. Of course, he doesn't think that's much of a game anyways. We shall see. We shall see UCLA, Washington, And then they're at home against Nebraska, Penn State, Rutgers, Wisconsin. Penn State, Wisconsin, Michigan. Wow. I don't think that's an easy schedule. I don't see an easy schedule anywhere. I don't have my binoculars on. I don't see an easy schedule anywhere. Other than the Gophers schedule where I don't see a loss. Forget it. I was going to make a joke. Forget about it. It's not going to work. Let's get back. Your phone calls. The lines are wide open. 763-260-1333. The networks. Yeah, the networks. They're not going to have. You know, we heard the stories about the Big Ten. The networks trying to negotiate, trying to finally finish the deal and everything. And yeah, you look, the networks are happy. The networks are happy. NBC's happy. Now, they may not have the greatest ratings so far, but Fox has and CBS, they're happy. They're very happy. And this is why, again, we went back and we kept saying, we kept winking and nodding, giving you as much peek around the corner as we possibly could. We kept saying Fox Sports wants Oregon, Fox Sports wants Washington, Fox Sports wants the Pacific Northwest. They want it. It's the Big Ten. It's the legal team. It's the legal council. Either Washington and Oregon is going to get in 5 months from now, or they're going to get 5 years from now, but they're coming on in. They're going to be Big Ten members. Remember, we said everything went south in the evaluation of Stanford and California and Stanford. That's not going to happen. It's Oregon and Washington. Oregon and Washington. You seeing it played out here. Look at this. Look at this schedule. The Great Pacific Northwest is going to be watching Big Ten football. The city of Los Angeles is now Big Ten country. And then you have the old Big Ten schools that have been around for 100 years. Big Ten is all that they know. The Big Ten brand goes deep in the water, deep in the souls of the Big Ten fans. And it's not just about football. It's about wrestling. It's about women's volleyball. Look, years ago, 20 years ago, it was all Pacific Coast when it comes to women's volleyball. It's not anymore. That just is not the case. It's Big Ten women's volleyball. That's the game. That's the fastest growing sport we've got in college sports. And now Washington and Oregon, USC and UCLA are coming into it. And those programs, many of those programs are prepared. The great, incredible history. Incredible history that goes way, 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 way back. And then the money that USC and UCLA are going to get right off the bat is going to trickle down to their other sports teams. And Washington and Oregon are going to see the same thing 6 years from now, 5 years from now. Big Ten hockey, come on, man. Big Ten hockey, it's growing. It's big. Although my Gophers can't quite seem to win a national championship, as they lose again last year in the national championship. But yes, Big Ten powerhouse, women's volleyball. Greg, I remember lots of people saying the Big Ten would never add Oregon and Washington. And you always said, yes, they would. Well, and they always said if they didn't add Oregon and Washington now, they were not going to add them. Why hasn't it happened yet? We explained why. We explained why it was going to happen. Is Oregon's hockey team going to go into Division I? That's a story we're going to keep an eye on, Coy. Because if you remember, go back to episode 52. We just released episode 311 yesterday on our Heisman Watch 2023. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Episode 311. Go all the way back to episode 52. The Oregon Duck, the Money Perch, told us if we don't get in now, and they didn't get in at that time, But he said if we did not get in now, we're going to keep swinging. We're going to keep swinging away. And one of these things we're going to talk about is the possibility, the expanding the bandwidth of sports teams that we sponsor here at University of Oregon. And one of those things could be creating a Division I hockey program, moving our HCHA hockey program into Division I. They talked about it. I'm sure they continue to talk about it. Do you know what school is talking about creating a Division I hockey program? Seriously? Do you know whose big boosters are talking about creating a Division I hockey team in the next 5, 6, 7 years? North Carolina. Keep an eye on that story. And then you got the Florida State Seminoles, who just out of nowhere created their women's lacrosse teams. A bigger bandwidth of sponsored sports, more scholarships offered is one of the things, one of the big time metrics that the Big Ten presidents look at that often do not get talked about. Mike Williams, duck and hide, Greg. The Trojans are coming. Come on in, Mike. Come on in. Just make it a November date. Let's come in November. Let's break the myth that USC would struggle against the lowly Golden Gophers in the tundra of Minnesota in November. Let's break that myth. Schedule it. Schedule it, Tony Petiti. Make it happen. Make it happen. Let's go. Let's go. Vincent Pertino says, we need a sixth member to make beach volleyball a conference sport like men's and women's lacrosse. Beach volleyball. Put a bunch of sand down in Iowa. Iowa, go ahead and create your women's volleyball. Or Wisconsin. Why don't you do it, Wisconsin? You do not have a men's baseball team. Kyle, no changes on the special teams coach. Hopefully at the end of the year, finally a change happens. David M. Mr. Greg Pflugar has been amazing when it comes to conference realignment. Congrats, Greg. Thank you, David M. Appreciate it. Big Ten hockey is big money. That's why we can't kick Notre Dame to the curb. There's no reason to kick Notre Dame out of the Big Ten hockey conference. We want them in. That's where they want to be. It's all good. It's all good. Again, the phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. The big story today is Big Ten matchups have been released for 2024, 2025, 2026, 27, and 28. Just taking a look at some comments I've gotten here. Hold 1 second. Making sure I'm giving you the best coverage in real time as possible. I also want to congratulate Tanner Morgan, the Gophers quarterback, 6-year senior last year. He got picked up in the practice squad by the Minnesota Vikings. So, Tanner Morgan, congratulations. Well deserved. That's a pretty good gig. It's a pretty good gig when you can get it. Practice squad, you make $12,000 a week as a practice squad member of an NFL team. Tanner Morgan, you did good. You did good. Take a look once again. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Big Ten 2024 matchups. There it is. Beautiful. Oregon, first year as a Big Ten school, they get home games against the Buckeyes, Washington, Illinois, Maryland, Michigan State. They go on the road. Oregon, Wisconsin. At the end of the third quarter, the Wisconsin Badgers do the old jump around. Oregon is going to be all involved in that. Beautiful. Absolutely a beautiful thing. Washington Huskies are going to be on the road against Iowa next year. Washington Huskies at the end of the first quarter. The Iowa Hawkeyes do the great new tradition of all the fans in the stands and the players. Both teams take a wave at the hospital that's next to the Iowa Hawkeyes Stadium, where there's little children battling cancer, as the Washington Huskies are going to be involved in that. The fans, the players, waving to the children, picking up their spirits, picking up their parents, their loved ones' spirits. It is an unbelievable tradition at Iowa. Washington is now a permanent part of that tradition. They're going to be doing it next year. USC going to get in the big house at Michigan. USC, Michigan, and it's a Big Ten conference game. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Now, the one thing I'm a little worried about, as a Minnesota Golden Gopher fan, now I'm worried about a lot of things. Okay? I mean, I'm worried about a lot of things. Okay? But I take a look at the Minnesota home schedule for 2024. Okay, you got Iowa, you got Penn State, you got USC, and you got Maryland. Okay? I want to explain something here. This is a college football YouTube national. We talk national college football, right? We cover it all. This is obviously a Big Ten show because we're breaking down the Big Ten schedule. And I'm obviously a Golden Gopher fan. And many do not know this, but Minnesota traditionally, Minnesota Golden Gophers start the season for the Big Ten Thursday night. Before week one, that's considered that first big Saturday. The Golden Gophers play Thursday night. They've been doing this year in, year out, year in, year out. It's one of those things where the Big Ten, years and years and years ago, the Big Ten threw up this to Big Ten schools, and none of them wanted to do it except for Minnesota. Increase exposure, you get at least one game, big game that most of the country's watching. A few years ago, it was the Buckeyes and the Gophers at Minnesota. Mohamed Ibrahim had 163 yards going in the middle of the third quarter. Then he tore his Achilles. It was a fun game until he tore his Achilles. This year, it was Nebraska and Minnesota. It was not a very good game. But, Minnesota likes to lead out there that Thursday night. They do it year in and year out. So I'm looking at these. What if it's 2024, right? The first season with UCLA, USC, Washington, and Oregon in the conference, right? You want to come out right away. You want a Big Ten, Minnesota at home against a Big Ten opponent. Those four, Maryland, Penn State, Iowa, USC, the only home game that Minnesota has against a new opponent, a Pac-12 opponent, is USC. So I'm afraid. I keep looking at this, and if I was Tony Petitti, I'm afraid I'm not going to get my November game, USC, Minnesota, at Minnesota. I think it's going to be August, whatever, 30th, 31st, 29th, 28th, whatever the last Thursday in August, probably, whatever that date is. It's probably going to be USC at Minnesota to break this thing wide open. I don't want to see that, but I keep looking at it like Minnesota's going to be playing at home Thursday night to open up the Big Ten season. It might not be a Big Ten conference game, but they love to have Minnesota play a Big Ten opponent on that Thursday night. Fox Sports, Minnesota, Nebraska got 3.9, 3.8, 3.4 million viewers, and it was not even a very good game. USC at Minnesota. Yeah, I think maybe that happens. I don't want it to happen that early in the year, but I think that might just happen. Don't forget the rise of Big Ten's women's basketball, led largely by Maryland. We need a rise in Big Ten men's basketball. That's what we need a rise in. A lot of Final Four appearances from Big Ten schools, but no national championships for many, 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 many years. Oregon is preparing to implement a full-scale hockey program revamp to play Division I. We've heard that they would dig into it if they got the invite. They got the invite. We got our ears close to the ground on that story. Peek around the corner. Even though it's not college football, but it's all tied into realignment. It's all tied in to realignment. We're gonna shut this live show down. We've been on the air. We covered it live. We knew it was coming. We got the tip off. We had our show all lined up, all set up. I want to thank everybody for coming on in, for your donations, for your phone calls, for your great comments. Big Ten matchups have been released for football for 24, 25, 26, 27, and 28. 12 permanent rivals slated throughout the conference. Fun times, 2024 with the expanded playoffs. It's going to be a blast. Later on tonight, I'm going to be joining Big Ten Ted on his night show on his YouTube channel. Check it out, 8 o'clock tonight. We're going to be talking about Big Ten football that's going on this year and in the schedule for 2024. We're going to be continuing to cover this story, plus other stories as we go into week 6 of college football season. Oklahoma, Texas, Buckeyes. We're going to be doing watch parties for those Buckeyes Terrapin games, and Oklahoma and Texas at noon Eastern Saturday. Then we're going to be doing the Michigan, Minnesota live watch party Saturday night. So hang with us, stick with us. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe, get notified on our Twitter account of our next live shows coming up here shortly. Until next time, from all of us at PATC to all of you, please you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.